Blog Talk Radio.
It is no longer the choice between violence and non-violence in this world. It's non-violence or non-existence. That is where we are today. Times is hard on the boulevard. Folks are bruised better than this car. Cause some bills falling sky high. And there ain't no answer to the question why. Welfare don't fare well. In my hood as if you can't tell. Oh, what a shame that man can't make bail. So he's getting rocked inside the jail cell. Baby mama got too stressed, working twice as hard just to make less. It's a dangerous cycle, but we still blind. And I'm still determined to do my very best. Trying to blame Mr. President, but it ain't the fault of the government. When times were good, how we overspend. And it came back to bite us in the ass. Don't be fooled by the facade. It's all a mere mirage. But like Charles, brothers in charge, brothers in charge. Hey, take a look around. Yeah, the world became changed in so many ways. Done changed in so many ways. Philly to LA and even shut down. But the gangsters, hustlers, fathers, but the door is down. We gon' work it out somehow. We gon' work it out somehow.
The world is a ghetto, cause they're roaming the streets alone, cause they got nobody home who can raise them. And you're moving out, the cost of living is sky high, and you know we working on it for the slow world. USA to Africa, the whole world won't change, and they looking to the government to play, and if they can see your pockets, that's a shame. There's a God up there somewhere. Here's what's happening here. This high and look low, and this gives me hope. We got nowhere to go. We feel like nobody knows how hard it is. Take a look around. The world became unchanged in so many ways.
On the corner, thinking they could do anything that they wanna. Yeah, you know the world ain't what it seems. Cause you got a gun in the back of your jeans every time you get locked up. Penitentiary stocks go up, and while your family's getting so up, upstate, but them babies getting older. But the crazy part about it all, somebody getting paid every time the bar. One day we wake up before our time is up, because it'll really be a lost cause if we lose everything at all. Black suit, European cut, the white shirt with the black skinny tie, dressing like Malcolm in morning. Can't be fly with an empty mind. Take a look around. The world became unchanged in so many ways.
Getting done and done in a hurry to bring the colored peoples of the world out of their long years of poverty. The whole world is doomed. I just want to do God's will. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man.
Welcome to Spoken Word Poetry, the art
the industry, the viability. I'm Jacqueline Taylor Adams, and I am your co-host, along with the one and only FRANCHON. Sweet FRANCHON. I was going to say your whole full name.
That's all good.
So they have 5 names on Facebook, everybody.
Peace and light, everybody. It's Sweet FRANCHON. Glad to be in the building.
All right. So how are you today?
All is great. All is well, sis. I missed you.
Missed you, too. So it's a new year. It's 2014.
Yes,
and
good.
We figured we start off this year just with FRANCHON and I and calling in on some people. I saw KP said that he was going to tune in, so I'm hoping he is. And we want to talk about where you are as an artist, as a spoken word artist. Where are you right now? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in poetry? And we want to talk about where you want to be and ways to get there. And we want to network and make sure that we collaborate, because there's so many people doing so many great things and a lot of resources, and sometimes we just don't know what's available right near us and what's right there at our fingertips. So we want to look at a year of planning. We want your purpose to meet your vision and strategic planning, collaboration, and networking. We can't work in silos anymore. No more the so long range. I'm going to be the one and only super spoken word star. No working in silos is just not effective. Collaboration. And you even see some of the biggest stars and the biggest money makers. Honestly, the bigger they get, the more they have the tendency to collaborate, because they know that's the better way to hold on to what they have. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the things we want to talk about. So, FRANCHON, just tell us about, what are your goals for the year? What's going on with peace, love, and poetry, and, what's your vision for this year?
Well, the good news is every January, February, I take off from performing, as well as I don't do any production. So that gives me an opportunity to sit back, reevaluate what worked the year or years before, what quite wasn't working, what aspects I want to improve upon, and gives me an opportunity to meditate on, making sure I stay connected to my purpose and don't let my ego get in the way. So, fortunately, this is coming up at a good time for me, because that's where I am in my process for 2014. Typically, in the past, I've had my year already booked completely before the new year starts, and I thought that was I was so excited about that last year. But life happens, and then I found that, especially being a micro business owner, that you have to have room to adjust to life circumstances. You have to give yourself enough room to be creative for that creative process. And what I learned last year is that I didn't give myself enough time to create things. You have to be able to sit still. Everybody has their own way. So this year I plan to create more as a performer and not focus as much on the production and promotion side, because the business side of it was taking up 90%, and I didn't have any new and creative products or services to offer, or just to improve upon some products and services. So my goal this year is to get some of my products completed, such as a couple of CDs, to take some lessons and to become a better performer, do some vocal lessons and things, because I have an idea of a one-woman show that I like to produce with just myself. I don't know if I get that done in 2014. Again, I'm giving myself room to not only perform but to produce the show and to formalize, to make sure all the formalities of my business is in order, my incorporation statuses, make sure my business licenses are up to date, make sure that, I'm keeping track of all my expenses, et cetera, so that I can make sure I'm not missing out on any tax breaks. So those are just some short goals. I don't make a lot of them because I like to accomplish them. But that's where I am. I'm a create some balance in my business.
Mhm. That sounds great. Honestly, that's where I'm at. This year, I don't really plan on creating too many things new. Very few new things because, I have a lot of other things that, I really want to focus on manifestation and aligning things, instead of doing one thing way over here and one thing over here. What can I work together and align it? And if something doesn't really align with what I'm doing, with my main focus, it's not time to do it.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I find myself saying no more than yes because I have to really look at, is it in alignment with what I'm doing? And I noticed that when I pull things in and focused on just a few things, I was able to thrive in those areas.
Yeah. And if you, pull something in that's if it's something that's going in a direction you're going in, it's a lot easier than if it's in another place because it takes so much more time and energy to get it done, and it just, pulls you out. So, but with that, that's why I thought it would be good instead of starting off this new year with a whole new show, let's really apply what we've learned. Apply what we've been speaking about, because we, speak about all of this, but how are we actually applying it?
That's right. One thing I like to say is, like you said earlier about collaborating, I am very good with collaborating on productions and creative things. But one of the things I'm doing is looking at experts like yourself, looking into what services that, I could hire or collaborate with others or to take some of that off of me. As a producer and promoter and a performer, sometimes I might need my own agent because I'm so busy, being an agent for other people. I might need my own manager. I may need my own marketing person to promote me as a solo artist versus the productions and the promotions and the shows that I do. So that's one of the things I'm looking at too. Like looking at them as two different products. I have my productions, and then I have myself as a solo performer, and and I need to give that some attention this year.
Yes, and that's what, again, what I'm doing, looking at my existing network and, people I know, performance things. Like, I even brought you in on the one project, the Impact Now, because it's a way that I can, share a lot of this information and different things that I can, go ahead and share it with you because you're ready to apply it. And and then me working with the Urban Tech Fair, that's going to give us a big arm in me being able to bring technology to the table.
I see.
Because I'm working with people who develop apps, who can make, we can put in game, create games through these challenges and things, and this is what we have available. So, how can we streamline this process really and make it more affordable?
Right.
Great. Okay, let me bring up the chat. Thank you, E. I hadn't opened up the chat room. I'm really working to stay focused, because I have a lot going on. And I just got the opportunity for anyone there that's in the gospel music and all. Wednesday we'll be interviewing Jeff Majors, from the TV One show, The Gospel of Music with Jeff Majors. He's releasing a CD, Sacred X. So I add that to our Hood Gospel series. And so hopefully I opened up the chat room. So if you want to go on and eat.
I'm so glad he is on the line. I really hope that you can pull him in the call because he has been doing some great work as far as building some brands. And I would love to hear what shifted his focus, what his motivation behind it, and what his plans are for this year.
Yes, and then I also want KP, if you're listening in, I'd like you to call in because I want, you and E and all to also share, opportunities. You have shows coming up. Is it, what do artists need to do if they want to, get on a show, if they want an opportunity to perform? E has an entire label, and he has a new radio show. he's doing, and so there are a lot of opportunities in Poetry 24/7. They're just doing some great things. So we want everybody to share what they have. So right now I'm going to open up the line. So caller from the 202.
Hey, what's going on? It's actually KP here.
Hi, KP. How are you?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Hey,
I'm
KP,
doing
glad
fine.
you got on.
Yeah, I still got the DC number, but I'm in Philly.
Okay, all right. Well, KP, first introduce yourself to our audience. Everyone may not know you. So, let everyone know who you are as a person, a performer, and then as a businessman.
Okay, my name is Christopher KP Brown. From Arkansas originally. I've been in Philly for the last 4 years, actually DC and Philly on the East Coast for the last few years. I run a website called Poetry247.com. We promote a lot of the poetry events that are going on the East Coast, and I also run a chapbook publishing company for poets called Two Pens and Lint.com. So, yeah.
Okay. So,
and I just like to say, Poetry 24/7 has been a huge support for me. It's one of my best investments. It really takes. KP does a great job in making sure that the information for lots of poetry shows in the D.C., Philadelphia, Delaware, New York area and beyond are posted and shared amongst the general public as well as poets. So I just like to publicly thank you, Chris, for all that you do for Sweet FRANCHON Enterprises.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
And it keeps Poetry 24/7 really keeps you informed. I know because Poetry 24/7, all I need to do when I get on Twitter is just share it. And this way people, know what's going on. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about the service. But right before then, because I want you to share details about the service and what people need to do. But we do have another caller on, so I want to bring on the caller from the 443.
Hey, peace. This is E, the Poet MC.
Hey, E, peace.
Hello?
How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey. So
I'm
I
happy
need you
now.
to.
E's on the call. I'm happy now. E's on the call. Christopher's on the call. It's all good. They're going to share some good stuff with us today, right? E, good to hear from you.
Yeah, glad to be heard from. Is KP still on the line?
Yeah, I'm still here. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother?
Well, chilling, man.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Christopher KP Brown. You know what I mean? I'm about to get my autograph book out. That's a beautiful thing that he's on the line, So.
Yeah.
Likewise. I know E for since 07. I actually met him down in D.C. He was featuring at Busboys and Poets, one of my favorite poets, and business-wise as well. These days, when I say favorite poets, it's a mixture of I enjoy the writing performance, but also enjoy the business side of what they're doing as well, because that's really what it's about, in my opinion, in 2014, as far as just moving the whole genre forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I just did some business with Christopher KP Brown with the Two Pens and Lint. In addition to, he's always been the main promotional arm for most of the Torchlight Entertainment events, from the Art of Conversation to recently in Philadelphia with the No Snaps. I definitely utilize Christopher KP Brown's company, Poetry 24/7, for promotion, additional marketing support, and as well as I have a new project out myself, Fear of a Black Poet. And he's published the book, because it's a multimedia project. It's a book, it's a CD, as well as a visual mixtape that's coming out in the spring towards summer. But the book, Two Pens of Lint, published the book, so I'm glad to have worked with brother to do that recently. So.
All right.
Yeah.
I want everybody out there, if what you hear from here is how everyone is using each other's service. And these two, honestly, all three of you guys are really at the forefront of what's happening right now, or as far as making things happen and moving the industry of spoken word forward here in the Northeast region. There are a lot of people doing good, individually, but really making an imprint on the industry, you guys are really moving it forward.
Right. And I want to speak on that because that's the main reason I really want to call in, to really talk about moving it forward, working with other people, because I feel like that's so important right now. You guys, I've been listening since the show started today. And you guys first mentioned just what your plans were for the year. FRANCHON, you mentioned what you were doing for the month of January, February. And the reason I called in is because I've talked to you about this recently, just kind of getting out of the way, like letting go of some of the little parts. When we create these businesses, they're like our babies, right? And we don't want to let go of any part of it, right? And so that kind of stops us from actually getting where we need to go in the business, or that stops us from doing the new business we can be doing and growing the companies that we have. So I know 2014 is going to really be the year where I really try to let go of some parts of it, get some other people in, get some other people on board where they've benefiting from it. And that's something that will also allow me to free up some time to do whatever is next that needs to be done, whether it's Poetry 24/7, whether it's something new, whether it's improving on the chapbook publishing, whatever it is, just working with other people, get more people involved, and so more people are benefiting from it. And also so that there's something left. Like, I keep getting into these debates over the last few months about the way it used to be in poetry, what events were around, what used to be here. And I'm like, okay, why isn't any of that still around? You know what I mean? And so I'm working to build something that's going to be around in 10 years, even if y'all don't know who KP is, that the chapbook publishing is still there, Poetry 24/7 is still there. You know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of what I'm, like, really pushing for, this year.
And if I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say also, we were remiss, Eda Poet MC, please introduce yourself formally to those who are listening, because we are so conversational because we know each other and we work with each other and use each other as resources. Please share with the general public who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Eda Poet MC, a.k.a. the Black Russell Simmons. You know what I'm saying? But
now you the Black Poet MC. You're going to do something Russell never did, so go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So in 1995, I founded a company called Torchlight Entertainment out of Baltimore City. And what we've done from then to now is work towards building an independent infrastructure around the culture of spoken word. We've started a record label, not in the traditional sense of a record label, more of a new millennium type of record label, where we, it's more so training artists to be multimedia artists that's tackling the realm of recording, music videos, as well as live interactive type shows, similar to what FRANCHON does with the opera thing. You gotta take things to the next level as far as like entertainment for the people. And one of the main things that I called in about, because we always talk about moving spoken word and poetry forward, and with the passing of the father of the Black Arts movement, and who I consider also the father of Black performance poetry as we know it, I think a lot of times, in terms of moving forward, we got to Sankofa for the situation and go back, revisit certain things that have worked as far as Black performance poets. Like, I've been doing poetry as a performance poet for 20 years. And one of the things that I tell a lot of artists, that we're reluctant to do things that we've already done as Black performance poets in the 60s and in the 70s. One being tackling the recorded realm. The last poets, Nikki Giovanni, Miri Baraka, they work with music. They've put out put out albums. They've done movies. They've done movie shorts. They've done music videos. They've toured with bands. They've done all these sort of things. And most performance poets I know today are kind of reluctant to do those things. So one of the main things in the push that we do from my company is to set up those infrastructures that offer support with music production, video production, and as well as recently, this past week, we've launched the Art of Conversation radio show. And what that is a pre-recorded show that provides a platform for spoken word recording artists. So, and you can find that show on SoundCloud right now. It's SoundCloud.com/EThePoetMC. That's ETHEPOETEMCEE, old school spelling of MCEMCEE. run it all together on SoundCloud. You'll find me there and all over social media with that.
Yes. And if everyone Googles The Art of Conversation, if you just do that, it should come up because it's the most recent things you've been putting out.
Yes.
Well, well, that's important that you, both of you are thinking about the infrastructure. And even with FRANCHON, she's doing something new. And, again, multimedia, multi-art form. And so by doing that and interacting, with other art forms and other mediums, you expand your audience and you expand the experience. So I know, I guess it was maybe 2007, 2008. We went into it was 2007. We were in the studio, and I was doing a compilation, and just according to the producer, a couple pieces needed to just be redone because they didn't have the masters, and the quality wasn't quite up to par. But there was a thought at that time that if the music is too strong or too much, it was going to overpower the word. And so it was just interesting how I'm still surprised. You would think at this point it would be a lot more. But there have been there are a lot of people doing recordings, excellent recordings, but still the number of poets that I still see out here that are really, really good, I'm still surprised the number of poets that are not recording. And the one thing about spoken word, the advantage you guys have in recording a lot is you can do an album a lot cheaper than maybe a full musical, a music artist. Now, because, you can use all live music and all, but you can't go in a studio for a lot less. Because as opposed to, musician, who has a band and a band member, you got to record this part in that section, and, you have so many. You don't have to do that. You do have an opportunity to spend less than going into the studio. So I don't know, what would you say, or what do you say to artists who are reluctant? And first, what are some of the reasons you feel, E, and I don't know if you run into a KP or FRANCHON, what do you feel first is their reluctancy to record?
Well, I would just say most of us are reluctant to record primarily because it's just uncharted territory. And we haven't grown into, because there are stages in terms of mastering any craft. The first aspect of, we have to question why someone wants to be a performance poet in the first place. Mm-hmm. And if you really want to be a performance poet, it grows in degrees. First you master the fundamentals of writing, then you master the fundamentals of performance. And then you master the fundamentals of how do I present this product to people outside of me performing for them, and then you experiment with things, and when you get into the mastery of any art form, you also get into the study and the history of that art form, because like recently, and in the past 10 to 20 years, there's been this debate in poetry of literary poetry versus spoken word and all this sort of thing, and I say those who engage in that type of argument, where it has to be like this over here and that over there, are not going into the history of what, black poets have done in this country. And most of us, our history with this art form begins at our first open mic. We don't do the research on everything that went before us. So my challenge to all artists is, if you're going to be a part of any art form, whether you're an MC, whether you are a vocalist, whether you're a poet, or whether you're a performance poet, you want to study all that has been done with what it is you're trying to do. We always evoke the names of Amiri Baraka and Sonia Sanchez. Well, all of them went into the recorded realm. All of them have written books. All of them have performed in different type of places. They take the music of their time. Most of the last poets and Amiri Baraka, they have a very heavy jazz influence, bebop influence in what they're doing. Most of us grew up in a hip-hop era or a funk era or a soul music era. Why isn't that, you incorporate that in what you do? Langston Hughes did the same thing. So I always say the reluctancy is just like, the fear of uncharted territory, but it's like it helps in the mastery of your craft.
Yes.
Right.
Other thing I just would like to share with poets or anyone that may be reluctant to record in any form, written, as they state. One of our guests last month says from the page to the stage. But as poets, many of our black poets, you're very historical. You're very cultural. You're talking about what's going on at the time. Some people are talking about history. You're reflecting our culture and all. When we physically pass on, it is the art that lives on. It's the art that tells the story. You're no longer there to be on a stage to deliver. Then, your recordings is what passes on, and it tells the stories of who we are as a people. And, so really, your role is you've been given this gift and you have a role within the community. So, you do need to record that.
Right. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I'll wait.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to speak on, just the fears of as well. I think a lot of it just comes down to a money situation for a lot of poets. And when I say money situation, that means two things. One, budgeting and make sure you having the money to pay for the recording, where you're paying the producer or paying for beats or just recording sessions, right, on one side. Secondly, do you have enough faith? Do you believe in your art enough to put money towards it? You know what I mean? And that's those two things, because I know a lot of poets who say they want a CD, but when it's time to put out, pay that $100, $200, whatever, they really start rethinking it. You know what I mean? Because in college at the age of 21, I gave a producer $500. All right, and we're gonna do this album. We haven't even talked about packaging yet. You know what I mean? I like promoting. You know what I mean? It's all these other things I got to pay for too. You know what I mean? And so when you really start getting into that, that's when you kind of start seeing the separation between who has an album and who doesn't. And it comes down, the real question, when you're putting that money out, can I make that money back? You know what I mean? And that stops a lot of people from doing an album. You know what I mean? And so, I don't mind, putting out $1,000 for a CD. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm going to make that money back. I know I need to sell this amount of copies, you know what I mean, to make that money back plus some. You know what I mean? But you got to have faith. You really got to believe in your art, and you really got to be on it to really have an album that does that. And, you know what I mean? A lot of people feel like they get burned, doing the album, and then it doesn't do well. You know what I mean? So it's a process, and it goes into, your faith and your belief in your art, and also your own personal money management.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk about one trend that you brought up, KP. There's an article, and I'm trying to find it because I just did the article. Actually, I'm trying to go back and find it. But they talk about 5 trends for 2014. But one of those trends, and I've been talking about it for the past couple of years, is pre-order. So if you're considering, you should be, but any project you have is you want to pre-order. And if you know you have a project coming out, you do not wait until the physical project is there in your hand to start promoting. And so for so many reasons, they feel they have to wait. There is a thing called pre-ordering, and you can go in the pre-order stage, and, if you should start in your planning. And this is why you got to learn about the business side, but in planning, plan in 90-day stages. So I have a project. That means 90 days out, I want to start promoting it. What's that visual image that's going to represent it? And get that image out and start talking about it. Then when you feel maybe 60-day out, you want to go into a pre-order stage. And that helps you fund it and helps make sure that you're in a profitability. So if you pre-order and you already have a certain amount of orders in, and you have the fund, you have the money, one, to pay for the project, and then you've already been doing all of this pre-promotion has helped. Once the project actually comes out, you have people ready to buy. Because, you have to get people ready to buy. So,
right.
I just wanted to talk, but they, industry-wise, that's one of the trends that, really need to get on is the pre-order stage. And one of the Philly poets that just did it is Seth Alfriki. He just published a book, and he put it out as a pre-order. And I ordered it, and about a month later I received my book. But really start looking at the, work in a pre-order.
Right. And I think a lot of this goes back to it's a book that I read a few years ago, and it really shifted my perception that it's called the War of Art, not the Art of War, the book that most people think of. It's called The War of Art. And it talks about when you're an artist, what types of business things you have to think about from not just the marketing standpoint, but as everybody has touched on here, about being financially solvent in what you're doing. Because what people, don't consider, they like to, that as an artist, you're traveling for free. You're trying to sell your product, usually to get compensated for your time and efforts. But, again, it's all a working process. And then I'm so grateful for what either part Emcee is doing and what Chris is doing, KP is doing, because it's shifting the energy, is shifting the knowledge base, is shifting the respect level of poetry as an art form, as a performing artist form, to get the same level of courtesy and respect. The goal, I guess, is to get the same level of courtesy and respect as other art forms and performing formats. That's why I created Soul Opera and Peace, Love, and Poetry. Peace, Love, and Poetry is basically a showcase venue so artists can have an opportunity to perform live and perform with a live band, promote amongst other artists. But Soul Opera is the formula that it uses a combination of music, song, improv, and poetry to tell a storyline, but it's also a way to introduce poetry performance to those who typically won't go out to an open mic or anything like that. So I've been able to draw in an audience that have never gone to an open mic event, who typically would say they don't like poetry, etc. So I love to use it as a platform to introduce other people to spoken word as a performance art.
Yeah, and that is what, especially for those who are promoters, and because we have to get past certain models. Like I said, I explained to someone the other day that I went to my first poetry open mic in 1991 or 92. It was an open mic, and it was $5 to get in. Right? Mm-hmm. So 20 years later, that's still the basic model that most people think of when they think about doing spoken word poetry business. There's something wrong with that picture.
You're right.
The thing is, more than ever, there is like 10 years ago when, because I used to promote like hip-hop shows and all that sort of thing. About 10 years ago or so, when I started, when people start seeing me, promote poetry shows, and they say, "Oh, what you promoting?" I say, "It's a poetry show." People used to look at you strange, like, "Well, poetry, spoken word." They didn't necessarily know what that would be. Now I could go anywhere. I can go to a nightclub and say I'm promoting a spoken word poetry show. People go, "Oh yeah, that's what's up." So there's a demand for spoken word, but people don't want the crapshoot entertainment dollar. Right? When they go to a show, they're not necessarily at an open mic. It's like good karaoke night. If you only got in contact with a Luther Vandross or a Gladys Knight only by way of karaoke night, that's not a way to do R&B soul business simply based off of karaoke. Because it's like, you pay for what you get. It's like it's a night out, we having a good time. You may see some great singers at a karaoke bar, but that's not, you don't go there looking for the dopest singers in the world at a karaoke bar. Likewise with an open mic. Open mic cannot be our genre, our business, everything can be based on open mic. It has to be like, well, this is spoken word. This is spoken word at its best. We're going to try to give you a great show, like what we did with the No Snap show. You know, the turnouts for both shows were great. Even we did it the other Tuesday when it's like the coldest Tuesday in ever. You know, people still came out and had a good time at the show. So the model for 2014, in my personal opinion, like everyone that's doing spoken word business, we should be thinking about what can we give people more in terms of like really establishing the art form in the mind of people that it's worth a $20 ticket. Like since I moved to Philadelphia, I've seen flyers of like comedy shows where there'll be like $35 ticket, and there'll be a bunch of comedians on the ticket that no one really knows. But It's like, you know, this is a show, and it's going to have food, and it's going to have drink, and people pay $35 a ticket, and they come out like, you know, hundreds of people come out for a comedy show because comedy has already been established. Like, well, we're going to do it's a comedy show, so I'm going to come to that. We have to do the same thing for spoken word.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think
now,
one way to earn that respect is that we got to make sure, as those on the forefront of this movement, is that we create quality products, events, and services because, you know, we actually have to show them how it's done and continue to help others, you know, do what they want to do with their art form and with poetry specifically. So, good stuff, Steve.
The only other thing I want to add, and I say this all the time, no matter who I'm talking to, as long as we black, I want to say we need to create vertical paradigms.
Oh,
and that's like,
speak to that powernomics,
you know,
sister.
That's right.
Yes, because the problem is that, and that's why you have a million open mics. Like if I give you an analogy, I used to vend on 52nd Street in New York, because that's like up on 125th Street. But all right, so you know, I'm vending, and how we started it was actually my oldest stepson. I don't know, Gordy can sell a cow milk. You know, he's not even really from Philly, but he comes up and he said, I got to stand on 52nd Street because he's always going up New York. Like, how you get a stand? Them old heads out there, they don't have spots left. Yeah, I got this old head. He left. He got a stand right in front of the jock shop, right there by the PNC Bank. So 3 weeks he's bored, but he would be up New York, and that's when they started this trend of putting rap sayings on T-shirts, and they'd be black T-shirts and the sayings being white, and that's in the 90s. So he left it, and we knew how prime that spot was, so we just started taking it up. So my husband would do it, and we figured, so we're getting these shirts. There was a new trend. But after about, say, 2 months, everybody done figured out where we got the shirts from because, you know, everybody goes up to New York, and everybody started getting the shirts. And then they started, I think this was before my husband passed, so we're talking about like 91, 92. And we were charging $15 a T-shirt. But then once the other people caught on, then they would charge $12. And the next person was charging $10. They got down to $8. It wasn't no profit in it anymore. Mm-hmm. And they watered it totally down. And so then what we would do, everyone, we had to stay ahead of the trend. But this was something, and they're still doing it on 52nd Street to today. They watch for the trendsetter. Everybody goes in. They water down the field till it's not profitable anymore, instead of somebody coming up with another idea. And so we have to stop that horizontal movement looking, that's real popular with them, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it, and everybody do it till it's not profitable anymore, and look at what else can I do. Like, if he has the idea, then maybe I can manufacture it. It's like when you're looking at what KP is doing. You know, you have, well, it was all these shows. Well, they need to be promoted. They're not well promoted. And he's using technology, so he's getting it all out. And then through that, they're forming little tours. And then he says, okay, there's another need. Who's really doing publishing? Because, you know, the self-publishing, arena is a monster. So here's somebody to trust that, hey, we can show you, and then I'll show you how you can make the money because you know that's a fear. So when we move from idea through retail consumption and black ownership in one area, that's what's considered that vertical paradigm. And we need, we don't have to keep watering down the fields. Well, you got this part, like, FRANCHON, he has one type of show. He has two other types of shows. And so just as far as in the performance, right now we got 3 different type of shows that all the same audience can be engaged at another time because they're so different. but they're all spoken word. But those same audiences, just as 3 ways you can hit the same people because you're moving them up, as opposed to just giving them the same thing, one open mic and another open mic and another open mic. So for those who are, strategic, and that's where collaboration comes in. How can we collaborate? It doesn't mean a whole bunch of people that's doing the same thing just keep doing the same thing together, larger, but what other aspect can we add on to keep the audiences and to keep the people to keep coming back and keep purchasing?
Well, I mean, if I may, just real quick, one of the things that we're afraid of, and you talk about that vertical movement, like using the 52nd Street analogy with everyone having a shirt. Everyone running out to, you got 10 different vendors running out to get the same shirt, right? Mm-hmm. One thing that it doesn't behoove us to think about, if those 10 vendors pool their resources and their monies, that shirt that they may be paying $5 for, that they're going to sell for $15. If all of them pooled their resources and came to the manufacturer with a large sum of money, at $5 shirt, they may be able to get it down to $1.25. And with that $1.25 shirt and that multiplied bulk purchase, and without I'm worried about the other 9, one of the vendors are always worried about what the other 9 are going to get. If all 10 of them say, look, this shirt here, this is going to be the one shirt that all of us are going to sell together. Yeah. And so I'm not worried about, oh, man, you going to him before you go to me, and we ain't got to crab each other to death. All of us make money off that shirt. Then we come up with a collective
agree on that
plan.
Price.
Exactly. So it's like we all can make money off of this one shirt. Collectively, 10 of us do that, and we'll make more individually. We paid less to get it individually, and we'll make more individually, but you got to have a vision of and the main thing with us is trust. And most of the problems with us in terms of trust is because we ourselves, everything goes back to an ethical code. It's easy for me to trust my brother if I know that I myself am trustworthy. And most of us are a little afraid of that aspect. That's one of the things we never talk about in black business, is the aspect of trust and personal code of ethics and living according to a code of ethics, whether the next person next to you is doing that or not. Because once we get there, our eyes will see opportunities. I don't see my brother KP doing something as competition, or my brother Ainsley Burroughs, who has a show going around the country. I don't see that as competition. I see that as opportunities for spoken word. And let me call my brother and see if there's something that we could do together in that. Oh, he got that show going on. That's what's up. Maybe if I do this part for him, I can get a percentage here and enhance his business system there, and then he can come back to me and get a percentage of this business thing I'm about to do, because that's what our corporate enemies, if you will, that's what they do. Like Warner Brothers will call up, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you got this, you got that. Why don't we sit at the table and get more of that?
Right. Yes. Right. Because, most time in poetry, we're doing, if you are a business owner, you're doing the job of 2 people already. You know what I mean? And you want some help. You want somebody. You want to cut somebody in. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And, even the open mics, it was always very fascinating to me that people just would go to open mic, see it, and I want to do that. I want to start that from scratch, when that open mic was already suffering that they went to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that open mic would love to have them just on board working with them instead of being in competition or them start a new event or whatever. And that's always my suggestion whenever somebody says, oh, I think about starting an event. Well, all right, what was the event that sparked that in you, that thought in you? Go back and see if they need your help. You know what I mean? See what you can do
how
there.
many people were actually there, And that's the thing when you say, KP, when you talked about people talking about what used to be, that's what used to be here, And I watched it, you have an event, and I'm like, well, hey, let's all get around and support this. And they're like, well, I want to start my, own. There's someone else just wants to, start their own. And so we wound up with, when it was just mainly one, now, there were 10, 10 to 12 open mic events where nobody has an audience above 40 people, and they're lucky if they have 40 people.
Right.
And it's,
it's
you know.
It's one of those small black churches, like the churches on every corner.
Right.
Tell the same truth, but we're going to divide it up. You're going to have 3 members. Everybody will have 3 members. When we come together, pool some resources, and it'll be a better situation for everybody.
And speaking
that's
like what FRANCHON said, I'm sorry.
No, go
that's
ahead.
The thing. One of the things that, and FRANCHON can attest to this, just what you said, like what it used to be. I remember a time period where in most cities there were maybe 1 or 2 major open mics in that entire city. And as a performance poet, like, you could go to another city and go to that 1 or 2 open mic. They'd be packed to the rafters, and the support from the audience purchase, because I've always had CDs, but it's like to even purchase those CDs. It's we used to go to open. I could go to open mic in Brooklyn. I could go to the Brooklyn Moon back in the day and sell 20 to 30 CDs easily, and watch another person stand next to me and sell 20 to 30 CDs easily. But then when it became, especially in New York City, like I've seen, you have like 4 or 5 open mics within a radius of each other, all of them averaging 5 to 10 people, and this is not an exaggeration. You'll have those kind of numbers, and when me and KP, we did a tour last winter, and we went to not to put people on blast, we went to a spot in Atlanta, and that one venue had 3 poetry open mics in that week at the same space. 3 different groups of people promoting a poetry event, none of them getting a big crowd.
Right.
But all of them in this one coffee house, all of them struggling to get 10, 15 people, and most of the 10, 15 people that were there were poets themselves.
Right,
right. So that's what spoken word poetry spots have really been reduced to. The majority of them in everybody's city, there'll be 1 or 2 that has people that are art patrons, but the rest of the spots will be full of poets.
Yeah. And that's a lot of that is ego, and and then some of it's not actually having the business sense. Because I think last year, we actually had wanted to do a show down in Atlanta, but they didn't really have no inside people. I'm like, you have a great idea, but what makes you think that's going to sell in their market? How, it could be a great idea, great show concept, but how are you going to get the people there? And you're all the way here. How do you know you're going to sell? Why wouldn't you just, if you're on tour, instead of putting on your own event in a city where you don't have any support, and I think it was some poetry festival going on. This was outside the festival. I said, why wouldn't you just try to attach to something already going on in that city?
Right.
And, they really, really tried, and I think they finally realized that wasn't going to be feasible, to do that. It was just too hard without on-the-ground resources, and it was a lot of competition. But, you do have to understand the business of things, and this will help you sometimes from getting burned. And, you do have to take chances, but this, and it's not just in poetry, this lack of collaboration. This kind of happens in our small business community, and that I agree with you with the trust thing. Yes, and that goes back to, the whole Willie Lynch, us being separated and being taught to just trust one another, and it just happens, but it's been at least 15, 20 years, and nonprofit started, the way has become nonprofit and for-profit, the way has become in business collaboration. Everybody working in silos and you being this lone soldier, it doesn't work anymore. And you see big businesses, when the biggest of biggest people are willing to collaborate. And just to show you an example, one of my clients is Will Smith's dad, Will Smith Sr. He do all natural body and wellness products, black-owned company too. But, and he was my client. I go there, whole family. And then the the black celebrities got together and decided to back Carol's daughter, and I know her, right? And they're two black-owned women-owned companies, but they're two different business models. But when they got together, they all said, we're going to support Carol's daughter. And they got together, and they did it. And Will Smith, Senior, he was like, I can't support you anymore. I mean, I knew it was coming because I already heard it. But it was, it's that loyalty. Okay, we're going to all get together and we're going to come behind and support this one business. But since that support of Carol's daughter, I have seen Overbrook Entertainment, which is Will Smith, but he has expanded their brand into so much more. And they have so much more successes. But you're starting to see it's a whole circle now working together rather than just them trying to do their thing over here or just.
Right.
They have found that collaboration is working. So if people that have all of that kind of money is realizing it's working, it's worth their time to collaborate, there's no reason why we can't start doing it.
Absolutely.
Well,
right.
I think that one thing that we have to all recognize, just like as you said before, not only know your history on the creative side. Fortunately for me, I've had the opportunity now to become an entertainment business major in college. And what happens with me, what I find very interesting with my study perspective versus my colleagues, is that I'm always studying about independent artists, independent functions, those who want to remain independent and own the rights to all their stuff. And all of them had this idea that it's all about the big conglomerations and it's all about the big business. And, I take some independent music artists, and that's how I come up with soul opera and things like that. I take music, some things that already happen in the music industry, and I take them and I try to find a way to fuse poetry in it as a foundation, backdrop, or part of the performance. And Eric Roberson, for instance, one of the most successful independent artists out there. He always he owns all his stuff. Cal Riddick, even though, she's a local independent artist, and they do fairly well. So one of the things that happens with me is convincing artists that, guess what, you can be independent and be sustainable. It's just you got to determine and be clear about what your goals and objectives are and what you want. It's basic business 101 and 102. And I use those conglomerates. I use other models. There's all kinds. You don't have to recreate everything. You can pick and choose and pull together those components that work for you and create what you're trying to build.
Right. And to go back, we go all the way back. We're having this conversation of, business and poetry. And what I tend to forget when talking to poets is that a lot of poets aren't looking at it as a business at all. You know what I mean? Like, it continues to say just this art and this hobby. And, we kind of, in poetry, we had this whole thing of hope and faith. Well, if I just do right, everything will turn out right. You know what I mean? But there is strategy involved. There is strategy for how to have a successful open mic, how to grow your career, how to set up shows. Even you mentioned that going to Atlanta, you don't just jump up and go to Atlanta. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? You spend some time. Because, I got into this with somebody, a couple years ago because they saw me go to Atlanta. I was like, well, I lived in Georgia for 5 years. I didn't just, put on a blindfold, throw a dart at the map, and go to that place. You know what I mean? Like, I was in Georgia for 5 years. I know the landscape. I know the landscape of the whole state's poetry scene. You know what I mean? I know who to contact 6 months before going down there. I know who to tell. I'm thinking about doing this. What should I do? You know what I mean? Like, it's a bunch of conversations behind what you see. You know what I mean? And it's not just a magical and just hoping and having faith. Like, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. You know what I mean? That's maybe 50%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, calculating, strategizing, these are things that poets need to not be afraid of. It's not a bad thing, and it doesn't mean you're less, concerned about the art or that you're some kind of sellout. I was called a sellout recently, which is cool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Because I understand the separation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the thing about it, just to share for those who think that way, because I know that was a big issue. I'm not a poet or a spoken word artist. I write. I have my writings, but I would never publish them. But because I wasn't part of the scene or in the scene, when a lot of people kind of distrustful of me. They thought I was just kind of come in and take from them, and all different type of things. But when the thing to look at, if you don't want to be somebody to get over on you, first of all, don't get blinded by the money, because I know sales. And that's the first thing they think. Everybody gets so caught up in the money, and people talk a whole lot of numbers. You get so hyped and excited, and you're not looking behind it. But even when you're doing business, the one thing I say for spoken word artists, if the people do not respect the craft of spoken word, just don't bother with them, even if they're the best producer or whatever, because they're not going to give you what you need if they don't respect the craft. And there's still a lot of people that don't. But the person that respects the craft will honor the art. The person that doesn't respect the craft is not going to honor the art. And a person like KP and Eat a Poet Emcee and FRANCHON, they're going to protect it. They'll do business, but these are the ones who will actually protect the art form because they understand it. So, but you can, everything is business. Even if you're just doing it from an academia standpoint, if you're going out to open mic and, you're engaging, there are rules and regulations and methodologies just to even get up on someone's stage. So, everything is a negotiation in business. You just, as FRANCHON said, had to be clear about what your parameters are, and you have to be clear about your values. Because if you're clear about your values and you're willing to stand on your values, you don't have to worry about the commercialism of your art because you're going to stand on your values.
And I think that's one of the main things, one of the things that you mentioned, that things are different now. There are all the aspects of business, again, being someone who's recorded for a long time, going into studios with producers who didn't know how to produce for spoken word, because you don't produce for spoken word the way you do for gospel or even hip-hop for that matter. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a hip-hop thing, sometimes it's not a hip-hop thing. So now you have a plethora from management to publishing to hosting to promoting to manage every aspect of business that you need in terms of spoken word. Those who've been part of the culture of spoken word, that's why I call myself the Black Russell Simmons, as opposed to someone outside of the culture, because many of us, we've been trained to be employees, and we've been trained to the main things that we complain about that happen to hip-hop culture are the things that we're like praying that happens to spoken word culture. We're waiting for someone outside of the culture to, number one, validate it, and number two, provide it a platform when they're not even in the mindset of what this culture actually needs. And some of the things that happen with hip-hop culture, you had those among us that single-handedly taught the mainstream industry, the corporate exploiters, how to successfully exploit hip-hop. No, this is not how you exploit it. You exploit it like this in terms of this is how you steal hip-hop from the people. And that happened. And many of us in them same figures are the ones who, like, when they say, well, I'll put spoken word on TV. And most of us know during the era of Def Poetry Jam and even with the era of Verses and Flow, those that are on these shows are not the best that we know of in terms of representing this culture.
Yes,
so
and
we have to
some of that stuff is behind the scenes stuff, but even behind the scenes, like with Def Poetry, one of the big things happens is the enthusiast, the idea person, kind of got removed from it. It was there, and then it was left to other people who wasn't actually their idea, their super passion to carry it out.
But
and that's
where
you.
The problem, I think, the problem with that, I don't complain when an exploiter exploits. That's what they do. My complaint is with those who, because the stereotype of the spoken word artist is like, among our people, we may be the most enlightened and the most conscious and all this sort of thing. So if that is so, then we should be more in the mindset of like, I will not allow my art form to be exploited, allow myself to be exploited. We should be thinking like the history of black art teaches us that if we don't create an independent infrastructure of our own surrounding our art, then all is lost. We know that there's always been a relationship between we create something, create an infrastructure for ourselves, keep it independent, and be patient. If we patiently build infrastructure, then we have infrastructure to leave the next generation to build upon that. But what we tend to do, as soon as someone outside of our culture validates what we're doing, then it becomes real. Because for a lot of us, hip-hop wasn't real until the white corporations validated it. You know, R&B or the rhythm and blues or the boogie-woogie or the blues music that we did, none of that stuff was valid until someone outside of our culture made it valid. Then they systematically take it from us. That, you know, the artists create art, and there are families that wax rich for generations based on what happened in the 30s, what happened in the 40s. So likewise with the art form we have now, we have an opportunity. There are, in every aspect of business, from the publishing, the music, to the promotion, we are in the forefront now to control those things. You know what I mean? We can give, like people talked about spoken word recordings. Well, there's no rotation. There's no radio show for that. So I created a radio show that gives the recordings that we create, give that rotation. All we need to do is support it. You know, all we need to do is, like a show that we're on right now, all we need to do is just tune in and listen and get other people to tune in and listen. This level of conversation here could revolutionize the spoken word business in and of itself. But we just got to be willing to do it.
And and that's where we're moving forward. I really think 2014 is going to be a breakthrough year. I know some things that I've had on the page for a few years, had the opportunity to bring to the forefront. And because of people like, you know, you guys making it more popular and acceptable, last month, you may have missed, we had Tony Spears on, and he calls himself Fruition. But he actually founded the Black Comedy Competition for the Bay Area, and that's a competition that all the major comics have come out of. I mean, every major comic there is, they've all come out of there. And he does, you know, promotion, he does these shows and all, but come to find out, he was a spoken word artist. But it was just something more he kept to himself. And then his son, you know, is into hip-hop and recording. He said, Dad, you need to record it. So he finally got, because the younger people said, I'm going to do it. And he started recording and whatnot. And so, you know, we worked together, and I'm like, well, Tony, do you ever put any spoken word artists on the stage, like to open up or something? Yes, I do. So like, now that's an opportunity and a platform. But he's also a filmmaker. He's done several films. And he's a writer. And he's the one who believed from the page to the stage that if you're doing poetry, spoken word, you have to write it down first. But but with that opportunity, you know, there lies an opportunity for some actual, because that's the one thing we haven't even talked about, and I'm going to post in here some revenue streams. But the other revenue stream that's available now, especially because of technology, is you know, film, television, shorts, you know, things we can produce ourselves, and even things being produced on another level. You just, you know, you need, all you need to know is, you know, how it works, and sit down, write, and you produce, and you build your audience. And you know, they're working on monetizing it, but we actually had an opportunity where there are more collectives being done. There are collectives in film where we're actually producing through Duvet, and Real Black is part of the network, but there's a network of releasing film companies, and they decide, okay, this is the one film we're going to get behind. It has to win the festivals. It goes through all the festivals, and then they choose one film, and they say, we're going to all get behind this. And Lyra Speck, she's real big with that movement, really gathering people, and they get all the people to come out and watch the black films, and they have done very successful that they made it past opening weekend, which allowed them to open up in more and more theaters, and this is all straight black-owned. So there are models being done, and there's no reason why we can't do those same type of things in spoken word. And there are, all kind of opportunities, but we're going to see a lot of never done before. And the only thing I just ask is 2006, I put out a survey, 90-something% of spoken word artists did not even look at spoken word as an industry.
Right.
So I'm just hoping that now in 2014, things that you might have been afraid to think of or even possible or even dream of in spoken word, because, deaf poetry was fine, verses and flow, that's fine, but years ago I thought way past that of, creativity.
Right.
You're some of the most creative people. Put that to your art form. Anything's possible. Don't limit yourself because you don't think it's possible. Don't be afraid to dream. And let's really step outside the box and, that's the one thing. Spoken word can work with any other genre and it can stand alone. So it's one of the most versatile art forms.
Right.
So,
we in general, we in general put a lot of limits on what spoken word is. Like poets put a lot of limits on what it is and what it can be.
Yeah.
Business-wise, me personally, and that's why, I set up the Art of Conversation radio show. Me being a recording artist, I put out my first spoken word CD in 1998. And, and I've been having this conversation since 1998. Like, you really need to get in the studio and record some stuff. So at this stage, I'm not having that conversation as much. I just know that, just what I proved with the radio show, I put out there that, look, we're starting this radio show, send me music. And I've been sent music as far as from London, from every part of the country. I have a plethora of music. So instead of having a conversation with, proving to artists that this can work, there are a plethora of artists who are already doing business. And that's one of the things that I realized in meeting Christopher K.P. Brown, that there's a kindred spirit out there. There's, it's not just me and KP and me, KP and FRANCHON. I know that everywhere else in this country, someone is already doing business. Someone is already shooting music videos. Like I shoot music videos. And shooting music videos and editing music videos for spoken word artists, I came across another spoken word artist doing the same thing in California. So now we're going to collab and do some things. So the thing is, water seeks its own level. We need to go ahead and start to build infrastructure among those who are willing to build infrastructures. There are what they call like lagging indicators. There's those who are the innovators. There are those who who get things sparked. So my services, and anyone that knows me knows that, you can get production done, quality production done, music production done at a very reasonable price. You'd be shocked at the kind of prices I charge you. Music production, video production, promotional help. You can do this stuff with a shoestring budget. And if you want to be in the business of spoken word, if you want to, do T-shirts, you want to do design, you want to do different things, to help perpetuate your business system, create a business system. And I have a series of workshops that I'm going to release in 2014 called Gladiator School. And, and what that is, it's like, we're going to actually work with spoken word artists who are ready to make those type of moves. Like, I want to do business. I want to master my craft first. Can't do business around bad poetry. So let's, let's master our craft. And then let's learn how to build business around our poetry. And that's what we're doing for 2014.
Well, I would like to offer you gentlemen, since you're doing a workshop, because I wanted to say I'm the chairperson of the Urban Tech Fair. It's a national movement, but we go into various cities, and we provide an infrastructure that helps showcase what's going on in technology in that city. And we foster collaboration, and there are tech challenges and all different type of things. So there are some things that we're putting in place, nationally, like we're working on sponsorship for cloud and ground listening booths, and primarily for independent artist music. And everything I do includes spoken word. Like if you're going to do business with me, you have to be able to agree to deal with spoken word. I add that into the mix.
Okay.
And but we do virtual expos. So we're going to start in July through December, but there'll be a virtual expo every month. So I would love for you guys, you present virtual, and the virtual expos are 3-day intensive. So on topics that take 3 sessions, if you look at presenting those. And then for our Philly, when we do ours, we had an opportunity to definitely do something here, and I would love to do something creative around, producing, looking at, having a project, what does it take, that understanding, but also teaching people alternatives and creative ways of, finding a budget. And that's for the recording as well as for video, because video is a little bit more expensive. And so people shy away from doing quality videos, especially in spoken word. But if we look at, what's the process and, ways that you can creatively raise funds so that you can, produce that video.
Right.
So, you guys brainstorm, but, we'll be working it, especially from the tech end. But, you put together a workshop, or we can definitely put something together and
Absolutely.
just, present it to the Philly team. And then the virtual, of course, is done globally, so you have a global audience on there. And
cool.
That would be great, yeah, 'cause this way I can just be in charge. But, I really wanted to be able to bring spoken word in. I just always had a lot of ideas, but I have very few people who I could sit down and talk to that didn't think I was crazy. So
right.
It's
good. That sounds familiar.
Part of being a visionary, y'all. That's part of being visionary. That's all. Comes with the territory.
Right.
Well, look, before we end tonight, I just want each of you to please, drop some knowledge or a seed on what you want to leave the listeners with tonight.
And tell everyone how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, before Jackie gives the closing words, please share.
And tell everyone how to get in touch with you.
Okay. KB? You go for it.
Okay. Again, on social media, as far as Twitter, Facebook, everything is /E the Poet MC, ETHEPOET EMCEE. MC is EMCEE, E the Poet MC. Also, the main thing is for spoken word artists, because, one of the main things is letting the people know that we have quality spoken word recordings. That's why we set up the Art of Conversation radio show. It's a talk show as well as a show where we put like 10 spoken word artists each show in rotation. So you can hear it and the music gets shared. We're sharing it all over the internet. It's going crazy right now. And you can find that on SoundCloud, /E the Poet MC. You'll find the Art of Conversation show there. And send us your tracks at EPMC, ePoetMC, EPMC71@yahoo.com. There you go.
Now, is that MC, EMCEE, or MC?
For the email, it's
too.
just the M and the C. The E, the P, the M, the C, 71.
Okay, and that's at what? Gmail?
Yahoo.com.
Or Yahoo, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick, excuse me, KP. E, what about your website, your main website?
Yeah, the main website is boombapsyntax.com. Boombapsyntax.com.
All right. Go ahead, KP.
All right. So my contact, poetry247.com is the main website. Everything spelled, poetry is spelled out, and the number's 247, so poetry247.com. That's the website. There's a link to our other website, Two Pens and Lint, there on Poetry 24/7. As far as contacting me, to be honest, I'm the Facebook person. At the end of the day, like, Facebook is the best way to reach me. Email, or the easiest way, just Christopher KP Brown on Facebook. Christopher KP Brown. That's easy to remember. Chris Brown with a KP in the middle. So, and you asked for as far as like I guess any just 2 cents or word advice. My thing with poetry in general is that because it is a industry that's still growing and we're still kind of setting the foundation on a certain level. It's kind of hard to say where the money is. Like people always trying to do the full-time thing, like pay all the bills from it. It's afraid to make that leap. And so a lot of times people will look for the money first and then decide to work based off where the money is. But in poetry, it's reversed. Like, start working. Like, just start doing the work. Whatever work needs to be done, the money will find you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like, that's my thing to anybody who wants to get in the poetry side. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. And my name is Sweet FRANCHON, Sweet like in a hotel suite, SUITE. FRANCHON. You can find me on all the social medias and Facebook, etc. at Sweet FRANCHON. The website is www.peacefulpoetry.com. And I just like to tell everybody, don't be afraid. We are a resource, but it is a business. Be willing and able to have a consultation with us if you need some assistance, and be willing to invest monetarily in your craft, and and from that it will be an investment that you will be a good investment for you. It will be something that will help you grow not only as an artist, but help you move toward moving from a hobby to a business.
All right.
Okay. Well, you've all said everything, so I'm just going to say peace, love, and we're going to roll out on Lamar Hill, Poetry for a Living. And thank you.
Every time I tell somebody I do poetry for a living, they look at me weird. Like they don't believe that it's possible. I tell them that it is. I tell them I don't make my living off giving people reasons to buy a CD. That's crazy. I make my living off giving people reasons to live outside the box, outside the cell block, outside the cubicle. I tell them that a life lived without boundaries is beautiful. I tell them that the body can do whatever the mind chooses to. And I ain't got no illusions of grandeur. I know where my story ends, but yours begins whenever you get ready to move. Want to be a lawyer? Take your ass back to school. You only got a short time on this earth, so while you here, you better find your niche and work on it like your life depends upon it, because tomorrow isn't promised. Failure's not an option. Want to be a dancer? Get it poppin'. Work your angles like an architect with all your tears, blood, and sweat. Then disregard the people that'll tell you you're crazy because they too scared or lazy and too complacent to make the necessary changes. This life is about risk. Jumping in with both feet because the answer could be just beneath the surface, and the timing ain't never going to be perfect, but only 2% of the people on this planet actually do what they want. 60% of the people on this planet work for them. The other 38% are just too far gone. So you better get in where you fit in while you still can. Otherwise, die wondering what could have been. And when you think about it like that, doing poetry for a living makes perfect sense. It puts me in that 2%. I only answer to God. Program managers can't censor my shit. I'm a prophet that prophesies and profits. No gimmicks. I give it to you the same way God gave it to me. The pen is a pistol. The words are a nightstick. I just beat you over the head till you submit. No blue pill, just red. Here's some water. Swallow this. And this ain't about performing. This is 2 doses of reality. Call me in the morning. This is word is bond. This is you better get your piece of the pie before it's gone. This is 1 part heart, 4 parts persistence. Cover the pot and let it simmer. Guess who's coming to dinner? Opportunities knocking. Better pop the lock and let them enter. This is 2005. You can start a business with an internet connection and a laser printer. No excuses. Get on your mission and consider all this the next time you fix your face to ask me what I do for a living.